have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Hello and welcome back to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. This is episode 175 presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. As always, I am joined by Major Caldwell, Tara Roberts, and on today's show, we are going to mock the first round of the NFL draft, then break down all the fantasy relevant selections and what they mean for your fantasy rosters. But first, Major, what have you been up to, man? What have you been doing?
Absolutely nothing. I don't.
Boy, I love to hear that. Love to hear that. I know Tara's been up to something because I've seen a couple of new videos, a new article come out there on the social media there. So we know Tara's doing a little bit of something on the side. How's that going for you?
It's going good. I'm churning.
Just keep on grinding out there. The old fantasy football content machine is cranking out some new content every day. And that's no different than us here over at the Viper Network. New videos, new shorts, new this, new that. Who knew my biggest video so far would be me just laughing like an idiot? But here we are in today's age of social media. Tara, you got to check it out. It's my latest, my instant reaction to Ronald Jones signing with the Dallas Cowboys.
Hating on Ronald, man.
You know me. I'm a Rono guy. I'm Rono, never Ronald Jones. That's basically how I live my life. But one guy that I can get behind, one guy. We talked about him on the show just a couple weeks ago, and that was Adam Thielen there and him signing with the Carolina Panthers, which is not a big surprise. Great move for Carolina, getting themselves a security blanket for their future signal caller moving forward. The thing I got a problem with is he's already comparing Carolina as a Super Bowl caliber team. And they ain't there yet. Tara, Carolina Panthers, Super Bowl 2029. Is that what we're looking at here? What's your thoughts?
I wish I could remember who on Twitter said on my timeline that, oh no, Adam Thielen is getting senile because they're, well, it's good to see wide receivers being positive about the new circumstances that they're going into. I mean, we saw it with Tyreek Hill last year, anointing Tua as, like the greatest quarterback ever. And hey, it worked for him. So maybe this is wishful thinking, and Adam Thielen is going to come out with his best season that he's had within the past 5 years or something, all because he went in with such a positive attitude, just like Tyreek did with Miami. So I don't hate it.
You're such a cup half full type of girl. I like it. But, I said it last week. The guy is getting old. I called him over the hill. You guys fought me on it. And look at the evidence. The evidence is there. To do to see now. He's absolutely lost. What has that team done in recent history to him to even say that? They're not even positioned to even win in 3 years. What's going on here?
You know what? I don't hate this move, though, for Carolina signing Adam Thielen. I think it's a good move. I think Carolina's done a lot of good things here in the offseason. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the side-by-side comparisons between Adam Thielen and DJ Moore, and I kind of referenced this in a video a couple days ago, there's not a whole lot of drop-off based on statistics alone. That being said, one had a quarterback, one didn't have a quarterback. Let's call it the way it is, because not all statistics are created equally.
Thank you.
But when you look at this, I mean, Tara, we brought this point up last week. Adam Thielen accomplished this, even though he had a better quarterback, in a lot fewer games. It's not like Thielen was out there or major, like you mentioned. He wasn't healthy all season long, and yet he still produced numbers very similar to what DJ Moore was able to do. And we love ourselves some DJ Moore, but the truth is he never had more than 4 touchdowns in any given season there, right? I mean, we've talked about DJ Moore's lack of ability to get the end zone with the Carolina Panthers. I'm sure things will be different with Justin Fields in Chicago, but the point of the matter is here, when you look at it, Thielen's numbers are very similar to that of DJ Moore's, especially over the last, say, 3 or 4 years. Adam Thielen actually has the better numbers, better team, but the better numbers. That being said, another player who's going from one situation to a better situation is Brandon Cooks, going from the Houston Texans to the Dallas Cowboys in what I like to call Jerry Jones's Dumber Dumber moment there. Just when you think you couldn't do anything more ridiculous, you totally redeem yourself. They traded Amari Cooper last offseason, probably the dumbest thing they could have ever done. And basically, they bring in Brandon Cooks for the exact same draft compensation in which they received when they got rid of Amari Cooper. It doesn't make up for Amari Cooper being traded, but at least it helps a little bit. Major, Amari Cooper, Dallas Cowboys, you like that fit?
Yeah, Brandon Cooks, I don't know. Is he trying to like win the award for playing on the most teams in in his career? Like I think he's played on like every team so far, but it's been kind of quiet for him last year. I know you was a big champion of his last season, during the preseason, and I don't know. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I don't recall hearing his name too much on the show. So I think he's a good wide receiver number 2. Maybe even 3 at this point of his career, but I think he still has some juice.
Yeah, the good thing about Brandon Cooks is I think he's a good complement to what CeeDee Lamb does. We talk about the Dallas Cowboys needing to stretch defenses out. That was something they were missing there with Michael Gallup coming back from that ACL injury. But when you talk about being a player in a bunch of different uniforms like Brandon Cooks has, 4 times he's been traded. That is the most by any player since 1980. I mean, that's tied with guys like Eric Dickerson and Kiko Alonso, who were both dealt 4 times in their careers. So Brandon Cooks, some may say that he's not really wanted. Some say, hey, 4 teams wanted him. So glass half full type thing. Tara, Brandon Cooks, Dallas Cowboy.
I mean, I think it's fine. He's a solid wide receiver too. I mean, you can explain why his numbers were down last year. I mean, unfortunately, Davis Mills didn't really pan out. I won't even say the way we thought he would, because we didn't have that high of expectations, but he didn't even hit the ones that we had. So it was kind of tragic. And he didn't want to be there. I mean, he was publicly disgruntled, clearly unhappy, injured through a portion of the season. It was just not a good situation for him. So this is a better one. He should be happier. Hopefully he doesn't complain in one out of this one as well. I think he'll be able to turn it around and contribute some solid numbers there.
Well, it wasn't the only move that the Houston Texans made. We're going to talk about a couple of their moves here. One of our guys here, Dalton Schultz, is now a Houston Texan. 1 year, $9 million. Tara, was there no market for Dalton Schultz? Did no one else want Dalton Schultz? Because 1 year, $9 million seems like a no-brainer for a lot of teams. Vegas. What are your thoughts on that one?
I know some people are saying that the reasoning is that, he was a system tight end and that, tight ends just simply do well in Dallas, which, offensively is true. But I think he more than proved himself worthy of a multi-year contract. I think something something had to have gone sideways. I can't fathom that there was no situation where someone was going to offer him a multi-year deal. I would not have taken that 1 year deal, especially to go to a team in a complete unknown situation. So I did not like that for him at all. For Houston, it's fine though. I think he's a very reliable pass catcher. I don't think it was, entirely the system. I think he's a perfectly fine tight end. He'll be a tight end 1. He'll be on the lower end, unfortunately, more than likely, a little bit unreliable. But it was a good signing for them because they have to get stability for the quarterback that's going to come in there.
I like to call this the whole DeMeco Ryans effect, because it's not just Dalton Schultz. It's also Devin Singletary coming to Houston to back up, spell a little bit Dameon Pierce. Are we a little concerned about his injuries on the back end of the season, Major? How do you see that dynamic between Singletary and Pierce playing out in 2023?
I actually really like it. I think Devin was never a good fit for Buffalo, being a smaller running back, playing in the snow and all that good stuff. He's a shiftier back, and I think it's hard to really show what you can do when you're running in snow. So I think him playing in a dome, I think he's going to look way better. I think it's going. Wait, are they in a dome? I'm tripping. I'm thinking Dallas, but no, he's in Houston. But no, I think it'd be good for him, and I think I like them to split the work a little bit, because we don't know how that injury is gonna really kind of unfold. They've been kind of quiet out there about Pierce's injury, so we'll see what it looks like in the off season. But I like this for both players. I think give them a little more longevity.
Yeah, them running back injuries, they seem to be a little bit more hush-hush about. We've also got Javonte Williams. We're not really hearing a whole heck of a lot here leading up during this offseason. But speaking of players who are maybe trying to close the gap on someone like Brandon Cooks, how about DeAndre Hopkins, Tara? Not only has he been traded from Houston to Arizona, now it looks like he's finding his way out of Arizona somewhere else. He's only going to be one trade away from tying that record here moving forward. So he's got a legit shot at breaking that at some point in his career. DeAndre Hopkins trade talks are heating up. Where does he go?
So I did a wide receiver landing spot video. You guys can check out on my Twitter. And I talked about DeAndre Hopkins. And sadly, I do believe all the smoke that's coming out about New England. I think that's a strong possibility for him. I hate that for him so much. I really do, because I don't believe in Mac Jones whatsoever. I've been very vocal about that one. You guys know that I'm not a fan of Matt's boy McCorkle. So unfortunately, I don't like that landing spot for him, and I do think that it's going to happen. My hope here is that things are delayed enough, and Arizona just isn't really. It's DeAndre Hopkins. You don't have to be aggressive about it. The interest is going to be there. So I'm hoping that it, delays long enough that the Lamar Jackson thing can be handled. And if Lamar remains in Baltimore, I think it's a perfect spot for DeAndre Hopkins, because Baltimore has to get a wide receiver. It would make absolutely no sense for them to retain Lamar Jackson and say, let's roll with the same lack of receiving core that we had last year and get the exact same results that we had last year. No, you need to be able to make a push. You need a wide receiver. Rashad Bateman, he can be a wide receiver too. He's not wide receiver one capabilities. You need DeAndre Hopkins. So that's ideally where I would like to see him go.
I mean, we've heard New England a lot. I mean, a lot of people are saying that would be great for McCorkle Jones. They're giving him a bona fide boundary type receiver. We've also heard Jerry Jeudy's name being kind of kicked around by the Patriots as well as the Cleveland Browns. So we think this wide receiver market could heat up heading up to the draft. One of those other things that happens when we head up to the draft are pro days. We can't talk about the NFL draft without talking about pro days. And apparently we can't talk about Cam Newton working out at a pro day there in Auburn. Major, really? Cam Newton, I bet there was a quote that came out earlier. I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't really pay that much attention. He's like, there ain't no 32 other players, quote, that's paraphrasing here, that are better than me. Yeah.
Nah, and he's absolutely right. We talked about Mac Jones. We talked about David Mills. Those are two players right there that I think Cam is better than right now. I mean, I've seen a few throws out. It's always hard to really get behind somebody throwing in shorts, but the dude arm is just, he's still got a cannon for arm. He always had accuracy problems. He was hitting the receivers out there today. So I mean, he looks good. He's always going to look like muscular and all that stuff. So he's going to look good in shorts and everything. So hopefully he can find his way back into the league. And I didn't really like how his career ended, him being the caliber player that he is. But we'll see what it is. But like I said, I just named two players there that he's better than. So we'll see.
Well, I'm not quite behind you on that McCorkle Jones. Don't be putting the heat down on my boy Mac Jones there.
God.
Here we go.
But we're talking Cam Newton, man. Those injuries had been starting to add up for most of his career.
Right.
His style of play does not exactly protect himself a lot of time. And he's not going to get a lot of the calls that a lot of these other quarterbacks get. So when you hit him, you're not going to get flagged for it. That's basically what has happened throughout Cam Newton's career, whether you like it or not. The problem I have here is I don't see him as a full-time starter in the National Football League.
But David Mills can start. Like
David Mills won't be starting though. We're gonna have a guy we're gonna have a young rookie quarterback probably under center in Houston. And if you're telling me that Cam Newton is better than Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, I mean, I'm not there. We're talking about Cam Newton isn't that guy. I'm sorry. Could he be an adequate backup? Could he come in and, hey, Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. Hey, Cam Newton, you're under center. I think he could fill in. We see Chad Henne do it.
He's too big of a personality to even be a backup.
That's the problem.
That
right there is the problem. Do I think he's a starter? No. Do I think he's a backup? Yes. Does he want to be a backup? No. Does the team want him as a backup? The answer, once again, is no. So that's where I think we're having a problem with trying to figure out where Cam Newton fits in there, because I look around the NFL, and there are teams with a lot of unsettled quarterback questions. few of them are going to have their problem solved here in the NFL draft. We got 4 good quarterbacks right off the get-go that we're going to talk about. And then you've got a guy named Hendon Hooker who could slide into the first round. Don't discredit him sliding into, say, a team like the Minnesota Vikings in the first round of this NFL draft as a Kirk Cousins backup going forward.
Real quick with Hooker, though, before you go too much further, where's all the hype really come from? I like him just from the film, but have we seen him do anything in the draft in this little period after the season?
We haven't seen him do anything because he's been hurt. I think he tore his ACL is what it was. So he's that guy who's going to be probably redshirt his rookie year, but he was a Heisman candidate this season, if you recall. And that's playing with a Tennessee team that was a pretty solid team when it was all said and done. Guys like Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, good wide receivers that he was working with. So there is hype around Hendon Hooker, and it's rightfully so. That's why the film, Major, like you said, it looks good. The problem is he's been hurt. That's why we haven't heard his name hyped up. There's teams certainly that his skill set is going to fit how these new offensive coordinators want to work it. The mobile quarterback with the arm, basically what Cam Newton was, except with more accuracy when Cam was a little bit younger. Unfortunately, again, he's not there. But let's talk about these quarterbacks because we know he is. Major, it happens to us all. It really does. Some sooner than others hit old. I mean, heck, I was a grandpa at like 33 years old. So what can I say about any of this, right?
He was already like 55 at 33. So there you go.
Yeah, that life hits you fast there. But when we talk about these quarterbacks and why Cam Newton's not going to have maybe look as a starter, I think we're going to see 4 quarterbacks drafted probably within the first 15 picks, 3 probably for sure within the first 5 or 6. So let's get right into this right now because we want to make sure we hammer this whole draft off because then we're going to talk about the landing spots on these guys who are difference makers for your fantasy football rosters. And we can't do that until we start making these draft selections. So we're going to talk IDP is going to come in here, linebackers, safeties, corners, offensive linemen. Hey, we're going to give the big guys a little bit of love on this show too. We're going to break this all down here, courtesy of the PFF mock draft simulator that they got going on over at PFF. So I'm going to pull that up here. We're going to get this stream rolling here right now and talk about this because I love this thing. I can sit here and literally kill hours and hours of work time by doing these mock draft simulators. So we're going to go there, and without further ado, we're going to take trades off the board. I mean, that'd be too easy to make some trades. It's going to get confusing. We're going to get lost in the shuffle when it's all said and done. I'm going to start off here with the first overall selection. The Carolina Panthers, they are going to select CJ Stroud. That's right. I'm taking CJ Stroud. I think this Bryce Young talk right now is all smoke and mirrors. Why do I think it's all smoke and mirrors? Because the Houston Texans, we know this, they really want Bryce Young. We also know that the Panthers, they gave up a lot to move up to the 101 spot here in the NFL entry draft. So what better way to recoup some of those draft picks than by telling everybody that, hey, Bryce Young is going to be your pick. Maybe it spooks Houston to move up one spot. We saw this happened in the previous teams, 2 teams like Philadelphia moving up from 3 to 2, giving up all kinds of draft capital, just move up one spot. Maybe this is a way that the Carolina Panthers can get their guy, Houston gets their guy, and of course the Panthers, they get some of that draft capital back to use a little bit later because they have some other holes they need to fix on this team. Tara, what do you got at the second selection overall?
The second selection, I've got Bryce Young. And I think that would be an ideal situation for Houston. I mean, obviously they're in a situation where there's not going to be a trade that happens when we're looking at Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, unless they just felt ridiculously passionate about one. And I don't think that's going to be the case. They're going to be more than happy to take whoever's left over. And if it's Bryce Young that's left over, I think that's a perfectly fine pick. And maybe perhaps them really lucking out and getting the guy who they probably wanted to begin with in Bryce Young. I get the hesitation that people have and why they prioritize CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. But at the end of the day, he's not that far off. I see some people talking about, he's 5'7". We know he's not 5'7", okay? We know that his height is something that we have seen succeed in the NFL before. So that's not the big issue. It's really just the weight in his frame. So, provided that he can get out there and show some durability, I think he's got all of the intangibles and the tangibles that you want in a quarterback. So that's a perfectly fine fit for Houston.
I just want the record to show that Major would rather see Anthony Richardson at both these teams here that we just selected, because I think Anthony Richardson is that guy that could be the biggest difference maker, the highest ceiling, if you will. I mean, I hate that term highest ceiling, but I mean, Anthony Richardson has all the intangibles that you could possibly be looking for. Do the Arizona Cardinals select Anthony Richardson at 103? Probably not. But Major, who do you got the Cardinals taking with the 3rd overall pick?
Yeah, I like to go and just get the guys that I like, but for the purpose of this, I want to keep it as close to a real draft as possible. And with Arizona, I don't know what they're doing on offense. I don't know what the GM out there, I don't know what they're trying to figure out there. I don't know what's going on there. So I'm just going to play it safe, and I'm going to go with the edge rusher. I'm going to go with Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Will Anderson Jr. there out of Alabama. A lot of talk around him, a lot of hype about him. He is probably, in my opinion, the best defensive player. And once Jalen Carter started having those legal issues, that probably vaulted him above Jalen Carter when it came to the NFL draft. Now, at pick 4 here, I mean, again, Indianapolis, they've got to get this right. They've tried the whole recycle a quarterback program there, from basically Phillip Rivers to Matt Ryan, and it hasn't worked out for him. I'm really shocked that they didn't go out and get Derek Carr this offseason. That being said, I'm not a Will Levis guy, and I don't think that their new coach here, coming from Philadelphia after dealing with Jalen Hurts for the last couple seasons, is going to want Will Levis. He's going to want a guy that reminds him a lot of Jalen Hurts, a mobile quarterback with a good arm that can make things happen. That's why I see Anthony Richardson heading to Indianapolis to be the next starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Now that brings us up to the 5th overall pick, and Tara selecting for the Seattle Seahawks. This is the first of 2 picks that the Seahawks have in this year's draft. Tara, where do you see them going?
I think they're going to go defense. I don't think there's any need for them to go with the quarterback here, which would be Will Levis, and more than likely in the real draft, that would probably be the situation as well. So it just doesn't make sense. I think they're fine with Geno Smith, and Pete Carroll, I don't think he's really interested at this point in trying to develop a guy like Will Levis. So, at this point, you're at the 5th pick. You can go ahead and you can take that risk and go with Jalen Carter. I know we've got the off-field concerns. We've got him looking not like an athlete at his pro day, but he'll pull it all together. He's a top-notch athlete, and it'll come together at some point. So it's worth the pick here to go with Jalen Carter.
I'm not going to lie to you. I see a man that big run at me without a shirt on. I'm still running. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I'm going to try and get the heck out of there one way or the other.
He's going to hawk you down.
Now, Major. Oh, yeah, it's scary. It's not a good process here. I mean, I wouldn't want to be that guy. I feel sorry for these quarterbacks, especially the smaller quarterbacks there, when they see him line up across from them, because he's just ready to launch off. You know what's going to happen when you're facing a guy like Jalen Carter. Now, Major, we saw Detroit. They made all these big moves so far in the offseason, maybe one of the more active teams in the National Football League. Where do you see them going with pick number 6?
I was really hoping that Jalen Carter would fall, but let's see. I'm gonna go with another edge rusher. I'm gonna go with Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson. See, now that is a great pick there. If I'm the Raiders, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, okay, I could really use a guy like Tyree Wilson there to go opposite of Max Crosby. The whole Chandler Jones thing hasn't quite worked out for us there in Vegas. That's kind of where I was hoping that we'd be able to get him. Obviously, you end up going with that selection based on probably the fact that they've added some good pieces to their secondary so far this offseason. I think the lines they could be looking at Devin Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez as well, but can't go wrong with the edge rusher. Now, at pick number 107, I seen what you did there. I'm not into Will Levis. Maybe the Raiders are. I don't think so. For some reason, my gut tells me that, Josh McDaniels would love nothing more than Cam Newton to back up Jimmy Garoppolo. That'd be just like the most weird, dynamic quarterback duel that you could possibly put together in the National Football League. But I just can't get behind Will Levis. I will not get behind Will Levis. That comes up to me. I'm looking at offensive line, defensive back. Devin Witherspoon, for me, a little undersized. Christian Gonzalez could be that guy. Peter Skronsky, I see him more tackling as a tackle than anything else there. So I might go down this board a little bit because this wouldn't surprise me with the Raiders one bit. And my top corner happens to be the son of a former Pittsburgh Steeler, and that is Joey Porter Jr. So I know PFF has him ranked down here at 16. I am the Raiders. I'm going to grab myself a corner right there because let's face it, you're in a division with Patrick Mahomes, with Justin Herbert, and Russell Wilson. They all have weapons. You need to find a way to neutralize them on the back end. Joey Porter is one of those guys I think they can get the job done. And that brings us to pick number 108 there. Tara, you're back on the board with the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, Atlanta. They need a wide receiver. Do I believe they'll go with a wide receiver? That is the question. I don't think they'll go with a wide receiver, but I'm not picking what I think Atlanta will do. I'm picking what Atlanta needs. So I am going to go with Quinton Johnson.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's some big receivers in that. That's a big receiver room.
Mm-hmm. That is the goal right there. You got Kyle Pitts, you've got Quinton Johnson, and you've got Drake London, and you've just got, it's not even like, that wasn't gonna be a good reference, but you've got just like 3 literal towers just coming at you. So there you go.
I mean, that Atlanta, they've got a type. They're that guy or that girl that you know right off the get-go. They have a type. Atlanta has a type. They're developing something there. I mean, I was kind of with you there with the wide receiver. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is another option there. I think they would strongly consider based on what he gives them, what he could give with Kyle Pitts there, and the whole dynamic of the Atlanta Falcons. They could have a very good offense that could be a little bit underrated moving forward. But moving forward, now the Chicago Bears. Major.
I just say, I saved something specific. There's a reason why I didn't go with a specific pick for that last one, because I saved up something. I saved up something for Chicago right here. Major, can you do it?
I'm so tempted to do it. I know where you're going. I'm so tempted, but I kind of like what the Bears have in their receiver room right now. You got Claypool, you got DJ Moore, you got Mooney. Like I think you're good. I think we need to shore up that offensive line. I'm real tempted. But you know what? I'm going to play a real GM, and I'm going to go with, let's see, who do I want to get here? Who's the best offensive lineman? I'm going to go with Paris Johnson from Ohio State. Big man, 6'6", 331 pounds out there blocking. We need to protect Justin Fields because he was running for his life last year.
Well, when you go out there, you make moves to get guys like DJ Moore. You add all kinds of capital there because you move from 101 down to 109. Gives you a little bit of flexibility to make some moves a little bit later. Yeah, you know what? We've given ourselves our young quarterback his AJ Brown. We've given him his Stephon Diggs. We've given him his supporting wide receivers already. Let's protect him while we're at it. Now, that brings me up to my next point here. The Philadelphia Eagles. They have a type 2. We know what they need. I mean, they need a wide receiver. They could go with Jaxon Smith-Njigba, which would be fantastic to have him with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. But that's not their MO. They don't do that very often. Then you can look at, they got some work they could get on the offensive line. They could go corner after watching some guys go via free agency. But the thing is, with the Philadelphia Eagles, they've always been that team that builds within the trenches. So I'm looking at some options here. And again, obviously, offensive line is definitely something I would consider. And then I'm looking at, you know what? We know what they like to do. They like to rotate that defensive front all the time. So I'm looking at guys like Cansey here out of Pittsburgh. And then I'm going down a little bit farther, that Brian Breesy, Nolan Smith, but Miles Murphy. Again, I'm going to go down a board a little bit more. Pick number 22. He's ranked number 22 on the PFF board here. I'm going to go Miles Murphy. Give the Eagles another edge rusher. Brendan Graham, he's getting a little bit older. He's got a 1-year deal. We're going to pencil him in there and give the Eagles another pass rusher moving forward. Tara, the Tennessee Titans, they can go just about anywhere on the board because they need help everywhere. Where do you see them going?
We pick all the players. No. Since Major didn't pair up JSN with Justin Fields, I'm going to do it here for Tennessee. We are going with Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
Okay.
Treylon Burks, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, great options for a quarterback. If you find a quarterback, is Ryan Tannehill still going to be that guy in Tennessee? Can he be that guy in Tennessee? Or are we doing this all for Malik Willis moving forward?
They said he's committed. No, I don't think they're doing it for Malik Willis. They said that they are committed to Tannehill. Now, if this goes sideways, I think that they might be committed to someone else at quarterback in the draft next year. But now, granted, if they've got all these young wide receivers and stuff, and maybe deal Derrick Henry at some point and go younger there, they'll have the ability to maybe go into the market for a big signing next year at quarterback. So, hey, there are options for them. It doesn't have to be poverty.
A quarterback with that kind of options, it's going to be an attractive place for them to play moving forward, right? You got two young stud wide receivers already in there. We know that the running back position is quite replaceable. We'll see. I mean, they have some parts that they could move, but right now, that Tennessee offense, it doesn't really do nothing. Maybe this is the piece that changes things a little bit. Now, Major, when we're talking about 112 there with the Houston Texans, they already went out there and they got themselves Bryce Young with the second overall pick. They're picking again here at 12. We got the quarterback. They could use a center. They could use a defensive line. They can use probably some wide receivers now that they got rid of Brandon Cooks. Where do you see the Houston Texans going under new head coach DeMeco Ryans?
Oh man, this is a tough pick here. Again, I think I might stick with some offensive linemen here. These young teams, they need to get some line play going. Let's go with Broderick Jones out of Georgia, 6'5", 311 pounds. Big man blocking.
All right. Well, they just basically made Laramie Tunsil the highest paid left tackle once again, which is like every 3 years they decide to make Laramie Tunsil the highest paid left tackle in the National Football League. You've got them going there. That brings up the New York Jets and myself. I mean, they don't need any secondary help. They got one of the best secondaries in the league. Then you look at what they got. They can go offensive line here. Peter Skoronski, he's definitely a guy that I would definitely consider here. At tackle, he's probably a guy you can move into guard. Lucas Van Ness at the edge. I mean, it's hard to pass on a guy with that kind of talent, that ability there on the edge. Their defense is good. Nolan Smith is another guy that I'm considering there out of Georgia. Absolute freak at the combine. But for me, I'm going to go with the Iowa Hawkeye here and go Lucas Van Ness going to the New York Jets because I just don't think that Bryce Huff is going to be there much longer there. And this is a move that's going to really set this New York Jets defense apart from some of the other defenses in that AFC East. Tara, speaking of the AFC East, the New England Patriots, they are on the clock.
Man, that was a good pick. But I think since, everyone is avoiding Peter Skoronski, I can see New England, someone, that player falling to you, it would make sense. I don't think that they're going to go with they need to go with another quarterback, but I don't think they're going to. You took a great pick right there that I think would have been a perfect fit. So let's go with Peter Skoronski for them.
And just like that, Skoronski is a New England Patriot, and that brings us up to the Green Bay Packers. And I didn't want Tara to get biased here because we know what Tara wants, but I want to know what Major wants for the Green Bay Packers here. Who do the Green Bay Packers select with the 15th overall selection?
Let's see. Tara, do we go quarterback here? Do we?
Very funny.
Let's see here. You have to go receiver here. That team is in desperate need. They only have one pretty much starter on that squad at the moment. I mean, they could still do some work in free agency at the receiver spot, but let's see who's the best receiver. A receiver that I'm kind of like falling in love with a little bit more and more is Flowers. I think I'm gonna go with Zay Flowers here.
You can't really go wrong with him. Though. He's receiver. There's 4 wide receivers I think that you could easily make a case for possibly being the top wide receiver in this class. We've already seen 2 of them come off the board there in Quinton Johnson there and Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Zay Flowers is the other guy, and Jordan Addison is another one of those guys that you could definitely consider as one of the top wide receivers in this year's class, which brings us to the Washington Commanders, which happens to be my selection, I believe, right? We're up to me here making the Washington Commanders pick.
Yeah.
And you look at their needs. Quarterback is definitely on the board. Sam Howell's there. Jacoby Brissett. They need a guard. They need a center. They need a linebacker. Now, when I look at what's on the board right now, I don't really see anything that sticks out to me here that's like, hey, you know what? I want to go get this guard. I'm going to go get this center. Neither one of those make a whole lot of sense. Quarterback, you know what? Will Levis, he's going to be tough if he's still there for a team like Washington to kind of turn down because he's one of the top quarterbacks still on the board. So, but I do know that they could use a corner. I've seen Joey Porter slide down to them in many mock drafts. So I'm going to go with a guy at the cornerback position who's dropped probably too far, and that's Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois there. So that's the selection for the Washington Commanders, shoring up that back end there a little bit more. Now, Tara, you're on the clock with the Pittsburgh Steelers with pick number 17.
I think maybe going secondary for them makes sense, honestly. And maybe go with Christian Gonzalez.
Nice pick. I really like him.
Well, they just lost Cam Sutton there, so that's bringing some more youth there. We know that Mike Tomlin's is going to coach these guys up one way or the other, so can't really go wrong with the secondary help there with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Major, we know that the Detroit Lions, they're on the clock at pick number 18. You already selected Tyree Wilson there to take care of that edge. Where do you see the Lions go? They need defensive lineman help. They need linebacker help. They need corner help. They kind of addressed most of that help there through free agency, but they can always use a little extra. Where do you see them going here with pick number 18?
Oh, man. Me being a running back type of guy, they got a couple there already, but I don't see either one of those guys kind of working out. So I'm real tempted to go with Robinson here, but let's keep it safe here. Let's go corner. I'm gonna go with wait, did we already pick him? I think you just did. You did. Let me see another corner here. I was gonna go with Witherspoon.
We've got 3 corners off the board: Joey Porter, Devin Witherspoon, and Christian Gonzalez, all off the board right now. The top ranked corner according to PFF, that would be Deontay Banks there from Maryland. He's the top rated one that they have. And Emmanuel Forbes, they've got him down a little bit later. They're at rank number 36.
Actually, hold on. It make me want to think somewhere else. I don't really know too much about these players here. Let's go with... God, you did give me like every defensive one, and I love the offensive players. I love the skill players. You did it on purpose. Let's go DN. Let's go with was it Cansey?
Yeah, we'll go with Kalia Cansey.
Let's go there.
You address the defensive line. Another guy that's been getting a lot of comparisons to an Aaron Donald, maybe an Aaron Donald light, so to speak. Same kind of build, out of Pitt. Another guy who's been turning heads here throughout the draft process, especially at the NFL Combine. One of those high risers at the NFL Combine this past month here. So that puts myself, I believe, back on the clock with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, like you, Bijan Robinson is definitely one of those guys that I am putting into consideration here. However,
come on,
I'm not ready to give up on Rachaad White. So I don't want to put that kiss of death on Rachaad White here.
Wait,
so
Bijan over what?
I like myself some Rachaad White. I mean, I do. I really do.
You got a generational back here. What are we talking about?
Well, what I do see here is I see a team without a quarterback. And I see Tampa Bay having quarterback competition between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. And I just want to make this even more of a nasty disaster here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now I'm going to get Will Levis off the board. Wow. He's coming out of the green room, and he's heading to Tampa Bay. So hopefully you've got that highlighted for conversation a little bit later. That puts Tara on the clock with the Seattle Seahawks.
To be clear, I can't do math, so I thought that I was Tampa Bay and was definitely going to make that pick as well, because I think that if he falls beyond 11, I think they'll trade up for him. I think they won't risk it. They're so desperate, right? Like this is a dire situation, and I think that if Will Levis gets this, and I'm not a Will Levis fan, if Will Levis gets in there in that quarterback room, he will win and be a year 1 starter.
Really?
Yes.
You don't like what's his name they got there last year?
Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield.
No,
dude, it's bad.
Baker
bad.
Was balling last year. Baker had that little magic. Like, no, okay.
Absolutely not. I'm not convinced that Kyle Trask, like he genuinely can't move.
What about Baker?
I tried to give Baker as many chances as possible. I defended Baker about 5,000 times. I will not do it again. I have zero belief. I feel so bad for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. If you give me a free agency, winners and losers, they're always on the losers list. Poor wide receivers in Tampa Bay. What a tragedy. Go Will Levis to Tampa Bay and give a little something to that poor team. Seattle on the clock. Let's see. Seattle. So we originally went with Jalen Carter. So we're looking at them. At this point, we probably want to go with offensive line. And I think that, we'll go with Anton Harrison.
All right, you could have got. There's a couple different options there that were on the board there. Especially if you're looking at that offensive line. Another guy that I know has been picking up a lot of steam here as of late is Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright. He would have been another guy you could have considered with that selection there. So we're going to go with the tackle there to Seattle, and that brings up the Chargers, who are always looking for offense. Major, where do you think they're going?
Yeah, so the LA kid in me wants to go with Jordan Addison here, keep the USC kid here in Cali, but there's a lot of talk about, your boy, the PPR king wants to get up out of there. Feel like he's underpaid. The running backs behind him are, I think they're good, solid B backs. So I'm gonna go out on the edge here and go with Bijan Robinson here for the Chargers. And maybe they trade what's your boy's name? They'll trade him away.
Well, you going that route made things a little bit easier for me because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, man, where do we go with the Baltimore Ravens? Because I really thought you were to go Jordan Addison to the Los Angeles Chargers. The thing I can't wait to see is, and let's just make everybody happy. How about Indianapolis? They trade pick number 104 to the Baltimore Ravens, plus this, plus that, plus that. I mean, they're going to have to add a whole lot to drop down to pick number 22. That way, the Ravens, they give up Lamar Jackson. Indianapolis, they've got their quarterback. Then the Ravens, they can go with themselves and get themselves Anthony Richardson, which is basically Lamar Jackson. So everyone's happy. It's a cheaper Lamar Jackson. That's kind of what I'd like to see the Baltimore Ravens, the Colts kind of do. I don't see a team dropping from 22 to 4. I don't see that movement. It's going to have to be like the Philadelphia Eagles did for Carson Wentz that 1 year, where they made a couple different trades to get to where they're going. But if the Ravens are sticking here at 22, and there happens to be a wide receiver as Jordan Addison's caliber, I think that's the play you got to go. Jordan Addison to the Baltimore Ravens, him, Bateman, and maybe Lamar Jackson. Let's hope it's Lamar Jackson, because Snoop Huntley, although he is a Pro Bowler, I don't think is the guy to get the job done there in Baltimore. So Jordan Addison, he's going to be a selection for the Baltimore Ravens, which brings up Terry again with the Minnesota Vikings at pick number 23.
Yeah, despite losing Adam Thielen, I don't think that they will go wide receiver in the first round. I think that they like the skill set that KJ Osborne has. They have a absolutely horrendous defense. You need to solve that situation. And we're going to go with my boy, Brian Brzee.
Wait, hold on. Matt, who did you select? I think my little list is messed up here.
I went with Jordan Addison with the Baltimore Ravens.
Before, who was at Seattle at 20?
Anton Harrison at Oklahoma, tackle.
You can't change these things, huh?
No, not so much.
One
job, Major.
Don't
one
worry,
job.
Major.
Come on now.
No, hey, Major, I messed mine up too. And it's all out of order. Once I realized what was off the board, I just picked it and just made sure it was gone. So it's not correct.
I just did that. And then so the Ravens,
I'm caught up. It's out of order. But
we just, all right. So I think we are on track. And is it on me with the Vikings?
You are on the Jacksonville Jaguars there. They're looking for a guard, a center, and a
who's
DB.
The Vikings
Brian Brzee from Clemson.
Perfect. All right, now I'm all caught up. Now we're with the Jags, and I like the Jags.
And we were talking. Remember, we were just talking to our man there not too long ago, Mr. Dempsey, and we were talking about how they could definitely hit the defensive side of the ball here in this draft, considering all their offseason moves and their last couple seasons have been very geared towards the offensive side of the ball, especially the latest acquisition of Calvin Ridley and how he's going to fare out with that offense there in Jacksonville. That being said, we've got some guys that could be interested here in Brian Branch at safety, Deontay Banks. They're at corner. Then they've got a couple good edge options there in Nolan Smith and Will McDonald, the IV there. What is that, 4? IV is 4? Is that the 4th?
Yeah, I'm a 4th as well. Major IV. With all that being said, I hear you on the defensive side of the ball, but it's too much money on that offense. Like you you got the golden boy at quarterback. You have to protect him. So we have to go offensive line here. I'm gonna go with the top-rated tackle, DeJuan Jones.
All right, pencil him in. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they did lose Jawan Taylor here to the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency, so maybe that's a plug-and-play situation there, getting the Ohio State lineman in Duval County. Now, that being said, we are talking about the New York Giants. They can go a bunch of different ways. We know they're looking for wide receivers, tight end help, a center, linebacker. I'm not into these linebackers, but I'll tell you, I really wanted to go with an edge guy like Nolan Smith, but I'm going to give these edge rushers there in New York one more year to kind of make something happen. And I'm going to lean here with the New York Giants. I believe their best selection would probably be to address that tight end spot. I mean, they lost a pretty decent one there in Evan Ingram there a couple seasons ago or last year in the free agency. So when you're looking at this, how it all plays out. Now, you know what? I lied. I'm going to go wide receiver here. And it's not going to be Josh Downs. I want a guy who's going to stretch the field for these Giants guys. I want someone to stretch things out. We want to open things up for Darren Waller underneath. And the best way to do that is going down this draft board quite a bit and grabbing ourselves Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee. Let's give them a guy who can absolutely fly out there. And I don't hate it.
You don't think you could have did that in the second round? Or you don't think he'll be there?
You snooze, you lose. I think when we typically we see a lot of these skilled players go quickly in the second round, right? I mean, that's typically what we do. A lot of these teams at the top of the board, they're going to be focused on offensive linemen, working the trenches. So when that second round hits and there's skilled players on there, that's when they start to fly off the board. Now the Dallas Cowboys, Tara, they're on the clock with pick number 26.
I don't believe they're going to take running back here. I mean, I can fathom a world where if realistically Bijan actually fell here, they would take him, but I don't think that's going to happen, that it will fall that far. I do think that they can find another wide receiver in the second round or maybe even third. They missed on Jalen Tolbert, so they need to replace him, but I don't think they have to do it right here. I think right here, I think the direction that they're going to go, while I like the young tight ends that they have on roster right now, I just think this is a really good spot to go ahead and take Dalton Kincaid. I think it fits Dallas. I think it makes sense for them.
That's the first tight end off the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is. And I think it makes, like you said, I think it makes a lot of sense. If the Dallas Cowboys weren't going to pay a tight end one-year contract with $9 million, that must mean they feel comfortable with who they have already in that room. And they know they can get someone here late in the second round or in the first round, whether it be Michael Mayer or Dalton Kincaid. There's a couple of tight ends that are going to give you some production. Maybe not right off the get-go because tight ends take a little bit longer to develop, but by next season, these tight ends that you're seeing going in the first round, maybe early in the second round, are going to start paying dividends. Now, Major, the Buffalo Bills, look, they signed themselves Damian Harris, right? Damian Harris is now a Buffalo Bill. He's working there with James Cook. They lost Devin Singletary to the Houston Texans. Is this a possible landing spot for Bijan Robinson?
Well, I already took Bijan Robinson off the board.
I'm just saying this is one of those spots where he.
Oh yeah, I do like him. Like in a real life draft, I guess it'll go that way. I think he'll go. That'll be a good opportunity for him to go off the board in the first round. But I don't think Buffalo really cares too much for the running back position. I think to them that's just like a streamer type thing. Whoever's hot, runs the ball. So I'm going to let me look at the running back list one more time before I go there, just to see if anyone fits a little bit better there.
Well, you got Jahmyr Gibbs there and Zach
Gibbs,
Charbonnet.
Yeah, if anything, I would go with Charbonnet. He's a bigger back. I think you need that in that cold weather. But you know what? We're going to go on the defensive side of the ball. That's how their bread and butter is on that defensive side of the ball. And let's go with a linebacker. Let's go off this little chart that you got here. I'm going to go with Tristan Simpson.
Okay, you're going there quite a bit off the board there.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, not quite a bit off, but I mean, Trenton Simpson there out of Clemson there, ranked number 66. You're taking him over Drew Sanders, who's more of an edge rusher. Jack Campbell there out of Iowa, and Deion Henley. Okay, we'll pencil him in there. Sometimes they do crazy things out there, which brings us to, I believe myself, right, at pick number 28 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, we could do a bunch of different things here. We could talk about more offensive line help, but I think we've kind of plucked those offensive linemen out of there pretty good already. We could talk about possibly some more defensive line, maybe a DB like Deontay Banks. But you know what? We lost Hayden Hurst. We want to make sure that Joe Burrow never goes weaponless at any time. So let's plug in Michael Mayer and take our second tight end off the board and send him to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Wow, two
Tara,
tight ends off the board.
2 tight ends off the board, 1 running back. That's the world that we live in. Now, Tara, pick number 29 belongs to the New Orleans Saints. Where do you think they're going?
Oh boy, I believe that they are going to stick with defense. I know the offense. I don't see anything in the first round that they need to take on offense really. So we're gonna go with Nolan Smith.
Well, they did just lose Marcus Davenport. He just signed with the Minnesota Vikings here in free agency. So they'll find themselves someone to go opposite of Cameron Jordan until Cameron Jordan's ready to retire. So I do like this move for the New Orleans Saints, just to make sure that they always have someone ready to go, the next man up along that defensive front. Major, you've got the Eagles here. Pick number 30. They could go wide receiver. They could address the offensive line. They could possibly go to the cornerback position here after seeing some players get moved here in the offseason. Where do you see that fit for them?
I think they're going to go line here because, their receiver room is pretty good. You have a former Heisman Trophy winner, and then you have one of the best young receivers in the whole game. So I don't think you really need to reach in the first round for a receiver. Let's see. Is he still on the board? Yeah, let's go with one of my favorite names in the whole draft, O'Cyrus Torrence.
Going with O'Cyrus Torrence there out of Florida. You're taking him off the clock. And that brings us up to our last pick of the first round to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they've got weapons coming all over the place. Wide receiver, defensive line, a couple options for them. They have a very young secondary. It might be hard for them to turn down a guy like Brian Branch here, like a Deontay Banks. Will McDonald IV, he's a great option here for them there at the edge. And so is Josh Downs at the wide receiver position out of North Carolina. I could see them going with any one of these guys based on that. But, hey, we want to talk about some offensive players. So, you know what? I'm going to send Josh Downs just so we have one more player to talk about when we're talking about this team here for the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's what we got going on there. And that kind of brings us up to the next part of the whole show. And that is talking about some of these landing spots for some of these players and what they mean for fantasy. So, Tara, I want to go off you here off the get-go and talk about CJ Stroud in Carolina.
Honestly, I think it's realistic that they'll take Stroud just because I don't really feel like the Panthers can afford to take a risk. Like, I can see Houston. I mean, honestly, when we look at Houston, I can see them as being a risk taker and saying that, hey, we're not 100% sure about Bryce Young, his size, if it's going to work in the NFL. But when I look at Carolina and the amount of quarterbacks they've had to cycle through and the lack of success, I mean, Houston's coming off of Deshaun Watson. They've known success at quarterback. Carolina hasn't known success in a while. They need a guarantee, and Stroud is more of a guarantee. So it makes sense for him at this location, and I think he'll be able to step in and, lead the team solidly right off the bat.
Major, Bryce Young, Houston Texan.
Again, kind of along the lines of what Tara said, you really can't afford to miss at this point. And one of the whole season has always been Bryce Young as the top quarterback, one of the most plug and play type players in all of the draft. So the size is always going to be a factor. But, to me, he's probably the safest bet at this point for a quarterback.
Pick number 4, the Indianapolis Colts. They went with Anthony Richardson here. I love this. This is literally probably my favorite quarterback in this year's draft class. Maybe not the safest when you compare him to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, but he just oozes potential and talent in everything that he does out there. Indianapolis, they are sick and tired of this whole recycle the quarterback situation they have going on there. Now they need to get him some weapons to pass that ball to. Richardson, he's going to come in there with Michael Pittman. He's already got a ground game there in Jonathan Taylor. He's a plug and play off of day one with his ability, his mobility there to get to the edge and run the ball along with Jonathan Taylor. That's going to open up things downfield for a guy like Michael Pittman. They don't need themselves Paris Campbell this season when they've got the ability to run in the backfield like they do. Now, Major, you wanted to add something?
I was going to say, I like it because of the whole Gardner Minshew. We're going to get some Gardner Minshew magic for the season while Anthony sits and just chill for a season, try to, get the speed of the game down and everything. So we'll get some Gardner Minshew action.
I've got a super flex team that would love that.
Now, Tara, with the 8th overall selection, you went with Quinton Johnson there to the Atlanta Falcons. We know that Atlanta has a type. Quinton Johnson fits that build. What are your thoughts on him paying off immediately in fantasy?
I think if you look at wide receivers and the potential for them to produce immediately, I think Quinton Johnson is one of those people that has that level of skill set. So I think it's a great fit for him. They sound like, for the time being right now, they're going to give, Desmond Ridder a fair shot this season at leading the team. And if you want to give him a fair shot, just go ahead and, surround him with ample amount of talent. You've got, very excellent pass catchers there already. Add another one in. You're putting him in the best position to develop. So I like that pick for them.
At 111, the Tennessee Titans, they are going to select Jaxon Smith-Njigba there. And this is the best thing for this offense. It sets you up nicely for a quarterback of the future down the road. I don't think Tennessee is going to be great. I don't think they're going to be terrible next season. They still seem to think that they're going to find some magic between Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. I mean, the rest of the NFL world, they've already caught on to that battery combination there of Tannehill and Henry. Let's see if we get some misdirection with Treylon Burks going on there. Let's get one of the best route runners that we've seen in recent years. See if we can get him the ball and get him to break through that second level. So I like this move for the Tennessee Titans because it's definitely going to attract quarterbacks moving forward. Now, as we keep on going down there, Major went with Zay Flowers to the Green Bay Packers. Tara, as our resident Packer fan, how are you feeling about Zay Flowers being the selection here?
Oh, I would love that. I think he would fit in very well. I don't think they'll do it, but that would be a wonderful pick. Although maybe they'll do it. They'll spite, like I take a spite wide receiver one in round one. That'd be interesting. But I think that would be an excellent fit for him. Would love to see an additional receiver in Green Bay.
And apparently you and I were the only ones who liked the selection of Will Levis to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Major, I want to ask you, is Will Levis, you know how me and Tara feel about this, is Will Levis capable of beating out Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield day one in Tampa Bay?
Absolutely not. I guess he does have a shot. Let's say, because it's like that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other. They're pretty much all the same player. So I think Baker's probably going to get the job just because he has a little more experience. But yeah, those guys are pretty much the same player for the most part.
And we talk about pick number 21 here. Bijan Robinson to the LA Chargers, and a bit of a surprise because Major is predicting Austin Eckler finds a team that's willing to pay him what he deserves, which means this Chargers offense gets even more supercharged with Bijan Robinson here. We love Eckler here. I'm not as sold on him as a running back as much as a pass catching receiver, really. You know how I feel. I've made no doubts about this. I haven't changed my position here, but with the new offensive coordinator coming to Los Angeles here, Kellen Moore, I think he's going to want to run the ball a little bit more so than pass the ball out of the backfield. Now, they did that with Tony Pollard there in Dallas, so don't get me wrong. There's going to be passing opportunities for running back in this Chargers offense. I just think they're going to want a guy to hit the tackles a little bit more with more frequency than what Austin Eckler was able to do for them. And if indeed Austin Eckler is going to get paid, that means Bijan Robinson is going to be the cheaper of the two, which means this is going to give the flexibility to the Chargers moving forward. Now, Tara, I went with Jordan Addison to the Baltimore Ravens at pick number 22. What do you see him fitting in here for fantasy?
I mean, Bateman is more of he's not a huge receiver, but he's more of a big body receiver. And I think that Jordan Addison would kind of fit well into that void that they had left by Marquise Brown. So I think that would be a smart move for them. I like the fit there.
Great. We love a fit. We love a good fit, especially when it comes to fantasy football. And then that brings us to our next offensive selection of Jalen Hyatt. Now, Major, I'm going to ask you how you feel about Jalen Hyatt here and what he could possibly bring to the New York Giants.
He's going to bring the same exact thing they just got in Paris Campbell. So even though Paris Campbell is a better route runner, but he's going to take the top off a lot of defenses here. He's a speed guy. I'm not a huge fan of his, so I'm not going to be too happy about this, but he will be a person to stretch the field for the Giants.
We've seen players much worse than him get drafted much higher just because of the need for speed there in today's NFL. Now, at pick number 26, I'll talk about Dalton Kincaid here. Now, he kind of follows the next great tight end there when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. Jason Witten, Dalton Schultz, Dalton Kincaid, a position in which they could save a little bit of money here if you're the Dallas Cowboys, because we did see them kind of shuffle things around, bring in Brandon Cooks. They're going to be paying Cooks about $12 million this season. Meanwhile, Houston's going to pick about $6 million of that in the contract there. So that's where I think they kind of save a little bit of money there, especially not paying Dalton Schultz. Dalton Kincaid's one of those guys, along with Jake Ferguson, that's going to be able to come in here and Peyton Hendershot and give the Dallas Cowboys that third tight end, move them around until you can figure things out. Next season, this is going to be a great move for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, speaking of tight ends, the Cincinnati Bengals went with Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. Tara, your thoughts on a second tight end being selected in the first round?
I mean, it's interesting because it's a deep class. So, I mean, there's value here to be able to be had. But at the same time, if you really like honestly, one of, several guys, go get your man, as Major likes to say. So I think this makes sense for them. They've got to replace Hayden Hurst. It's not that Hayden Hurst was a significant portion of the offense, but they need a reliable tight end, and this can be an upgrade on that.
And finally, with the last selection of the first round, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And just a reminder to those who are like, hey, why didn't the Miami Dolphins pick? Because they had to forfeit that pick. So no Miami Dolphins selections here in the first round, at least not yet. Not saying they don't get back in, but right now they don't have a first-round selection to work with. Major, Josh Downs out of North Carolina going to the Kansas City Chiefs. We've watched McCole Hardman. He's still a free agent. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's gone. I couldn't even tell you where he's gone because I really don't care. He's gone one way or the other. He went to New England. Really? That's going to be your guy to give your support to Mac Jones? Okay. You know what? That's another story altogether for another day. By the way, I was right on Juju from the get-go. Now, Major, Josh Downs, Kansas City Chiefs, thoughts?
I don't know. I'm not sold on Josh Downs yet, especially to be a first-round receiver. I would have went with Boutte here just to talent-wise. You want to reach, for a player who has a lot of talent there, or you want a player with size. I would have went to A.T. Terry. But I like Josh Downs. He's a typical North Carolina receiver, size, speed, routes. He's going to be good. And whenever you pair any receiver with Mahomes for fantasy, you're going to have some kind of value there. So, I like any receiver at that position, but I don't know if I would have went with Downs there.
We know the Chiefs, they could have gone a plethora of options there. We had Deonte Banks, corner out of Maryland. He was on the board. Will McDonald IV, he was on the board there at Iowa State, the edge rusher. We also had Brian Branch out of the Alabama, who could play corner, who could play safety, kind of mix and match all over. I think that would probably be one of the best selections they could do just because they like to do that all the flexibility in that defense. But Tara, Josh Downs, Kansas City Chiefs, fantasy. Are you down with that?
No. I would have liked someone bigger there. I feel like they have guys that fit that profile right there, and I would have liked to see what them go with. But I don't know. I would have to go back and see if there was any other option that kind of at that moment. You could probably wait a little bit later to fill that need. They've got Sky Moore, and I think they're going to try and rely on Sky Moore a little bit more to kind of fill a similar role there. So I would not have. It's not my favorite pick right there, but it's not a bad one. I think he can pan out.
Well, with that all being said, I got my two favorite draft selections right here in Major Caldwell and Tara Roberts joining me each and every week here on the Vipercast. With that all being said, this has been episode 175, the NFL Mock Draft Fantasy Football Fallout, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group, and we will see you next week.